Ramadan.
It is 12:39. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda. Muslims across the globe have begun fasting for the month of Ramadan. And just because we're fasting now does not mean that we should stop working, living, and doing what we usually do, unless it's distracting our fast, of course. Working during Ramadan is rewarding, but not without its challenges. It's during this time that we tend to complain or feel unenergized and end up becoming hangry. Now, we try to avoid becoming hangry people because when we are hangry, it's not going to be great. Joining me on the line is transformation coach Shahista Thokan. Assalamu alaikum, Shahista. Shahista, assalamu alaikum. All right, so I don't seem to have Shahista still on the line with us. I do have some tips that I will share later on, but let's chat to our guest first. Assalamu alaikum, Shahista.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran for joining me, and Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family.
Ramadan Mubarak to you too. It's Shahista Ibrahim, right? Not Thokan. Just by
All
the
right.
way. That's fine.
All right,
though.
I'll keep that in mind.
No problem.
Okay, Shaista, now it's the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we've been blessed with this opportunity once again, and for many of us, we've already been in the game. We've worked before. We've gone to school and had to fast as well. But for some others, it's a challenge. They are trying and they're still trying to get on their feet. And for others, even though they've been around for a while, it's still a bit difficult for them to adjust to the fact that they are working and they have to fast. So how can we navigate fasting while working?
Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ramadan is indeed a month that tries us, in terms of physical energy, in terms of our physical body, in terms of our emotional state of mind as well. And it really pushes us to be as spiritual as possible, right? So Allah has made this month furthers upon us. It's made this month completely necessary because we need it. So as much as we know it is exhausting, it's tiring, we really don't understand the virtue, the absolute virtue of it, because I think only at the end of Ramadan where we actually say, I can't believe how much lighter I feel. I can't believe how good Ramadan was. I miss it, because that's the days when we're waiting for the moon of Eid, then people realize just how beneficial it was, right? So I think it's important right at the onset to understand why we have the month of Ramadan, because when we have an understanding of the why we do the things we do, it makes it much easier to bear things, to manage it without too much of complaint, right? When you understand the reason of why we have to behave a certain way, why we go through things that we do, the understanding of it actually helps you to reason with yourself, to actually talk to the little voice. And we normally say it's our nerves, but we talk to the little voice, that little ego that says, that keeps telling us, I'm hungry, or I can't take this any longer, or I'm so sleep deprived. And the more we talk about these things, the more we don't realize, but it's actually we're giving our brains a lot of acceptance of the way we feel. We're creating neural pathways, and every time your brain hears something from your mouth, it actually believes that. It takes it into essence, it takes it into cognizance, and it makes it real for you. Because what comes up out of our mouths are actually almost like rules for the brain. That is something that the brain says, okay. So if we keep saying all the time, I'm so deprived of sleep, or I have no energy, or I'm just, I really wish I could get that smoke, I really want that puff, I can't handle it, or it's I just feel like, I'm addicted to cold drink, and I really feel like I need something really cold right now. I mean, when we talk this language and we say these things, our brain says, so you're missing sleep, so I am sleep deprived. And what it does then, it starts behaving as a sleep deprived person, because the brain doesn't know any better. It hears everything from us, from what comes out of our mouths, and it says, okay, is that how I'm supposed to feel? Is that how I'm supposed to behave? And that's what actually happens. So the more we tend to say these things, the more we behave in that particular way. And that's not only 9 Ramadan, but basically everything in life, right? um,
Mm.
so we need to become aware of what we're telling ourselves. And if you know that there's a great reason of why you're getting up early, I mean, if a person has to reason with themselves, I'm gonna get up early because that's when Allah himself says that I'm on the lowest heaven, and I'm asking you, ask me for what you want in your life, talk to me at this time. I've made it incumbent on you. Even if you get up just to have a sip of water, I put so much of blessing in that, even that sip of water, that's going to carry you through the day. Then, we need to remind ourselves that if this is the promise, if this is what we've been told, then this is the reason why. So when our voice and our body says, I need sleep, then we should think of ways that we can work around it without depriving ourselves of the goodness that this month brings. So if we look at I mean, now in South Africa, we're reading Isha and Taraweeh. I mean, our men have been coming home at 9:15. I'm not sure around, the country, but I think that would be plus minus more or less. I mean, 9:15 is a good enough time for you to even have that last snack, because that's where everybody seems to go after Taraweeh is back to the kitchen, you know. And when they finish up there, I mean, even 10 o'clock for that matter is a good enough time to get sleep. If you look at our sleep patterns, normally the average person normally sleeps really late. They'd be watching Netflix, they'd be doing a whole lot of different things. Everybody gets to bed kind of late. I mean, 10 o'clock's a good enough time if you counted that in your 45-minute cycles that we should be counting sleep in. And if you're working backwards, you're getting a good amount of 45-minute cycles of good sleep before time for Seri comes along. So I think it's about how we can navigate life in the best way and minimize what we don't need to do, because it is a month about sacrifice. And so, are we sacrificing the right things, or are we sacrificing the things that we really shouldn't be sacrificing? You know what I mean? Like, if you're having
Mm.
so much of goodness, if you're reading Quran, but our habit is to sit on social media all the time, or to
Yeah.
just chat unnecessarily, then are we sacrificing what? Because are we saying, are we tired? Every time I open the Quran, I feel sleepy. That's another thing that people say all the time, right? It's something that I've heard in myself as well. I mean, I tend to say that now and then. Now that I'm talking about it, it is the kind of things I say. But then, are we sleeping early with the intention of reading more Quran? Or do we sit in our bed, play on social media, roll through and scroll through, and then sleep late anyway, and then deprive ourselves on what's important? So, how are we really looking at all of this? How are we
Mm.
navigating it? What are we telling ourselves? And that depends on how important this month actually means for you, and what it actually does for you. If you realize its value, then you're going to take it a bit more seriously. I remember the days when I was teaching, and I think a good few years back, like Seri was so much earlier, and there was a choice of, if you sleep, you're going to get up in such a bad mood, because it's
Mm.
too little sleep to get you actually feeling good. And it's a good enough time to actually have a small snooze and not stay awake. So it was that in between, what do I do now? And I remember getting up every morning, and it used to be winter, it was cold, and you think to yourself, I'm feeling exhausted. Do I need to go and face these kids again? But eventually, after a few days, you kind of get into the routine. So maybe
Mm.
people that are feeling overwhelmed today, it's probably because they're adjusting, because we're not used to getting up that early. We're not used to not having those smokes in between. We're not used to having meals all the time, you know. And maybe after a few days, they kind of eventually, hopefully, will settle into some kind of routine. But it's about pushing yourself, because I do feel Ramadan came because Allah wants to squeeze us for our full potential. And that's why He's made this furthers on us. But that's why He said, whether you like it or not, you're going to do it. I'm going to make it compulsory for you, because you don't even know what's good for you until you pushed into it, you know? So if you take it in that light, then none of this becomes tiring. exhausting, challenging, difficult. The words that we use is so hard. People love to use that word
Mm-hmm.
hard. I knock on the table and I said, table is hard. This is like the word is difficult. But people use all kind of
Yes.
different words for it. So if we tend to, set our mind in that way, like I can't do this. If you say that, I mean, you can be driving to work and you can listen to a nizam, you can listen to a proper radio, Islamic radio station, you can be listening to a bayan, you can be making dhikr. It's the same trip, but now you've changed it for you. And I do believe that Allah knows that we still have work to go to. He still knows that you have crying children at night who keep you up. He still knows that our lives are still carrying on, even when the month of Ramadan comes, right? And so sometimes it's about the little things, that extra small things that you're pushing in that can mean the biggest things to him. So let's, try not to let our mindset get in the way, and the words that we tell ourselves of it's just I can't deal with this. It's too much. I'm not managing. I'm not coping. If we try for just a while not to say those words and to actually tell your body something new, like come on, you got this. This is not difficult for you. It's only 12 hours, 13 hours. I think it's only 13 hours that we're fasting now.
Mm-hmm.
You can manage. Or the days are so cool. I mean, you're not even thirsty. Come, let's be real. So if we kind of talk to our brain in that way, I think it will become so much easier to handle and bear, even though we have to do a full day's work over and above the extra challenges of no food, no water, extra, tarawih salah. All of that is definitely much on the body. But I think as human beings, alhamdulillah, we don't know our true potential unless we kind of squeezed and pushed a little bit. And then you think, ah, man, I'm amazing. I didn't know I could do it, and look at me.
Exactly. And I mean, it's just been the second or third day for us, and our bodies are still adjusting to it. And I think it comes down to preparation, preparing for the month of Ramadan. You know already that this is what happens. You know how you are as a person. So you need to prepare yourself for the month of Ramadan before the month comes. That's why we have the month of Rajab and we have the month of Shaban as well, so that we prepare ourselves for fasting. And how do we, or what tips do you have for employers? Sometimes it's difficult to fast with certain people around, even though you tell yourself all of these positive words and you have all your affirmations in place, you do your work correctly, but then you still have to deal with colleagues and employers who are just not having it at all.
Okay, so yes, that's an important one, and I'm so glad that you asked the question. So number one is, I don't think there is anybody on the planet these days who's not aware that they have Muslim people that are in the fasting month.
Mm,
Because with social media, there's so much information all over, and people know everything. Alhamdulillah. So I think the one thing we look at what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, he said when you came to the month of fasting, he said something to the effect that, if tell people I'm fasting, people that want to argue with you, people that want to fight with you, people that want to, have disagreements with you, fasting is in any religion, everybody fasted, so they understand the concept of it. They also, you can use it to your advantage. So when it comes to employers, right, I would think that maybe before the month of Ramadan came, or even in the month of Ramadan, they possibly should take into account the fact that we up early. So if it's possible for employees to come earlier than normal, because once you up, it's fajr, I mean, you're already, in the mood, you're already
yes,
awake. So possibly start early and give them off a little bit earlier. And there's nothing wrong about asking. And sometimes people would say, but it's so embarrassing to ask. I mean, you would never know unless you ask, unless you try. And
exactly.
people are compassionate, and all human beings, no matter what faith they are, they have reasoning, so they could reason and understand where you're coming from, giving the same amount of hours at work, and just leaving a little earlier. Also remember, the fact is we're not eating. So if your breaks, during lunch was given an hour, you possibly need only 15 or 20 minutes just for your Zohar Salah or your Asr, something to that effect, right? You wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
need a full hour any longer because you're not going to the bathroom and smoking, or you're not going to have your lunches or whatever. It's just Salah breaks and that's it. So possibly, again, speak to them and say, how about if we didn't take our full hour and we work that 30 or 40 minutes shorter, because we need to get home, because especially now when the days are still a bit short now, iftar is, I mean, 6 o'clock is pretty early here in South Africa.
Yeah.
So possibly, and even at night, if we were used to taking a lot of work home, if we have employees that give us a lot of work, then we should actually say, would you mind if I filled in and did all of this more on the weekend, because during the week is a little bit hectic, especially now that we've got to go for evening prayers, which take a little bit longer. Like, there's nothing that nobody would ever consider if they didn't, if it wasn't asked, right? So there's a lot
Mm.
of ways. Also, I think since COVID, Sister Mariam, I think a lot of people are working from home. So possibly those that have gone back to work, it's possible that those employees would still even agree that, okay, yes, work from home, as long as you meet my deadline, as long as I get my work on time, I don't have a problem with it, just for this particular month. So again, that is something that is very, very considerable, of employers, if we just happen to present all of this to them. Also, when it comes to a lot of employees that love to get together, lunchtimes they go out. I mean, in the month of Ramadan, you can actually set an example, and I love that when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he went anywhere, he sometimes nobody knew who he was, but if you saw his character, you'd look at this person and say, I want to know who he is, because look at the way he speaks, look at the way he walks, look at the way he talks, like everything about him. And even the Sahaba, they didn't have to go there and fight. Sometimes they would enter a country and immediately people would already just say, yes, whatever religion you are, we accept because of your character. So if people see that every lunch break, if you're not allowed home, you're sitting with your Quran, or you have a tasbih, the counters in your hand, people love to ask questions. And I think as Muslims, this is a great chance in the workplace to extend the beauty of Islam to your co-workers and explain to them, because it is a beautiful month and people listen. I've got so many non-Muslim friends and they send me the Juma Mubarak. Sometimes they'll send me Ramadan Mubarak. They send me a few hadiths and they say, I love this particular thing, it was such a beautiful thing, it captured me. So people are looking for something to hold on to. They're looking for a good reason and something to give meaning to their life. And in the workplace, what better opportunity when you're surrounded by so many people that are non-Muslim, and there's a chance for them, for you to highlight and showcase the beauty of Islam, especially in this beautiful month. I mean, in this month we all behave really well. We all don't want to gossip. We all try to avoid sin in whichever way. We don't want to go out all the time, because if you're not eating, there's no need to be out for lunches with everybody. There's time to connect with Quran, because we know that is something that Allah wants us to read more of, to talk to Him, to read His word, to understand. So I think there's so much that can be done in the workplace if given the opportunity and the right mindset. And there's nothing like speaking to, even Nabi Sallallahu said something to the fact that, ease the load of a person, especially in the month of Ramadan. Like, so having the compassion, and that is what this month is supposed to bring out in us, our compassion, care for another human being. So in whichever way you can be an ambassador for Deen and showcase and highlight the beautiful month that it is, the beautiful character of Nabi Sallallahu and the beautiful deen that we have, that is Islam, and submitting to Allah in every form, then I think being in the workplace becomes a means of ibadat, actually, because your intention now is to be the best you can in within this month and within your environment. And I think it's so beautiful. And more importantly, I love to say that we need to ask Allah, because every time you're not well, you need to say, oh Allah, I'm really not coping, I'm tired. Or, oh Allah, every time I open my Quran, I'm sleepy. Or, oh Allah, I
Mm.
forget to make zikr. I'm so used to putting the radio on that I'm not, taking your name even when I'm stuck in traffic. Like, help me to remember you. So when we do that, then even the time that the little bits that we do in between our normal life becomes an act of ibadat. And no act, for me, I believe, that is too small for Allah to accept, really. So we should endeavor in every possible way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Shaista Ibrahim, shukran so much for your time and for that information. I know, even though we know these things and how we're supposed to act around people and be an ambassador for Islam, etc., some people are just not there. I hope they're gonna get there sometime sooner, but they need to get there fast, because you'll hear people complain saying that, you know what, Ramadan, as an employee, working for Muslims, and they say working for Muslims in the month of Ramadan is not great because I have so much more work to do, etc. And you know that takes away from the sunnahs of the Prophet when he says ease the burden of
Mm,
your employees, etc. So I hope that we are not such people and we make things easy for our employees as well.
mhm.
Shaista, shukran once again for your time.
My pleasure. It was really a pleasure speaking to you, and Jazakallah for having me as always.
Alhamdulillah. Right, have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Transformation coach Shaista Ibrahim taking us through fasting in the workplace, how to navigate and how to fast peacefully, how not to get hangry. That's hungry and angry, just in case you did not get the memo. So, yeah, guys, as an employer, it's important to ease the load of your employees, especially if you are a Muslim employer. And if you're a non Muslim employer, then just a little bit of understanding is necessary. Like if your Muslim employer decides to leave work earlier so that they can get home in time for iftar, I mean, it's simple. They are not taking a lunch break, so that extra hour can be given to them at the end of the day. So yeah, it all comes down to understanding. It is already 1 p.m., so let me love and leave you guys. I'll be here tomorrow once again for another edition of the Mid Morning Talk, the Ramadan special with myself, Mari Mukunda, and the rest of the Salam Media team. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.